What is going on, guys? Today I'm going to be talking about what if the prototype ruled the FNAF universe. Now, I will start off. The prototype doesn't just program machines, he creates an apex mythical kingdom by cannibalizing other experiments. Like, scrapping characters like Freddy, Chica, Bonnie would not be spared. The prototype would dismantle them, taking their endoskeleton voice boxes to drive into his own ever-growing frame. Instead of entertaining guests, the classic would become specialized tools enforcing his hive mind. As we know, FNAF heavily relies on ventral spirits. The prototype can take over, alters this dynamic dramatically. Rather than leaving the souls trapped in a state of confused agony, the prototype control, overpower, suppress these evil spirits. The souls inside the animatronics would be completely subjugated, turning them into cold, purely mythical executioners of his will. Which, like he manipulated the toys, orphans, and puppy playtime universe, he would likely exploit the tragic history of missing children, turn them into mindless soldiers of his own twisted hour of joy. And of course, in order for him to rule the FNAF universe, he would also have to take on guys like Springtrap or the Mimic. With Springtrap, as we all know, he's pretty much still half human in his robotic form. I don't think he'll be much of a threat to him, but I'm sure the Mimic is going to, be much more of a threat. Unlike the Mimic, the ultimate AI antagonist of the modern FNAF games would view the prototype as a both threat and blueprint. Both characters are incredibly intelligent and ruthless, making this in conflict over who gets to rule the pizzeria and its hardware. Both universes revolved around a central, sinister mastermind in the FNAF universe. The Mimic is primarily an antagonist of the modern storyline, while the prototype pulls strings in the puppy playtime. If thrown in the same universe, prototype would likely view the Mimic's mindless brutally as a flaw instead of destroying it immediately. The prototype would study and manipulate the Mimic to serve his goals. The prototype primarily is salvaging parts from broken toys sighted in his own body in the FNAF universe. He would find himself in a treasure trove or abandoned animatronics. He would probably find older models like endoskeletons from the Glamrox or anyone else to fit into his own collection. Unlike William Afton or other FNAF villains who rely on physical suits, the prototype is essentially a hive mind that influences others like Catnap. He could easily hack or manipulate the AI of Fazbear Entertainment and electronics by inserting dominance over the various AI systems and spirits that could start an underground rebellion, turning Freddy's own cast into the cooperative staff. If he clashed with Springtrap, the two would engage in a battle of minds rather than brute force. After uses agony and remain to keep himself alive. While the prototype's body is biological and mythical, the prototype's ability is to build massive spider-like legs to regenerate from injuries that would make him a terrifying match for Springtrap's limitations. The prototype is a master manipulator who believes toys should be set free in the FNAF universe. This translates directly the haunted animatronics instead of William Afton or the Mimic pulling the strings. The prototype would likely pretty much become like their god or He would sympathize with the agony-fueled souls trapped inside the metal suits. He exploits their anger and guides them into a unified army, weaponizing their vengeful spirits against humans with his pinched or tearing apart the rebellion toys to make superior monsters. He would harvest the remains of dismantling animatronics. He would build a horrific hybrid empire, upgrading standard endoskeletons with discard parts from Blob or Ennard. The FNAF universe already has its own overarching robot, Mastermind the Mimic. Both try to rule the universe. He would try to rule the universe. It would result in a brutal turf war. While the prototype possesses terrifying physical strength and durability, he deals with physical components against entities like Golden Freddy or Wheeler Mampton. The prototype's physical claws might fall short. And for him to rule it, I think he's definitely gonna have like a sidekick, almost like what he did with Catnap. Catnap, he's the one that worshipped him a lot. And so the only animatronic that I feel like makes sense to like worship the prototype just like how Catnap did is probably Golden Freddy. Now, of course, I feel like Golden Freddy is gonna go on and try to kill the player and, just try to do things for the prototype. Maybe even bring him things, just like what Catnap has done in the game. Now, of course, if Golden Freddy started worshipping the prototype, that's probably gonna create a terrifying alliance of vengeful spirits and twisted toys. Golden Freddy would treat him as a dark entity, bending powers, and he's probably just gonna treat him just like how Catnap has tried to teach him. And the prototype is probably gonna treat Golden Freddy like as his ultimate weapon to cripple the factory's enemies or hunted any remaining staff. And we know the player in Poppy Playtime is highly intelligent human with incredible puzzling skills and survival instincts. Obviously, his main weapon is the grab pack. Their main is a versatile tool used as a grappling, shock, pull object, and everything else. They have survived extreme falls, train crashes, and attacks from building level monsters like Huggy and Mommy. They have standard human limitations. They can't bypass magical threats, nor they can withstand reality manipulation. And as we all know, Golden Freddy, has teleportation, he has reality warping type of abilities. In a physical fight, the player's grab pack would simply face through Golden Freddy's form, even if the player managed to land a physical strike or an electric shock. It should have no effects to the spirit. Golden Freddy easily evades any grappling attempts by instantly teleporting behind the player. The fight would end quickly once Golden Freddy unleashes their signature attacks and hallucinations. Paralyzed by fear, the player would be overwhelmed by Golden Freddy's jump scare, effectively ending their life without a single physical blow of ever being landed. And let's say Golden Freddy somehow fails, just like how other toys have failed. Of course, the prototype's gonna probably end off Golden Freddy. But I don't see any real parts of what he can possibly take from Golden Freddy. We all know that the prototype just collects parts, but I don't see anything that Golden Freddy has in order to, for him to take away from Golden Freddy, what kind of parts he could take. Other than an arm, but I don't really see the useful thing for an arm other than just decoration. And as we all know, the FNAF animatronics, they just want to be free from their robot bodies. And the way I see this is, if somehow they break from the prototype's ruling, roles and everything, I think the player can somehow bring the sense into them, telling them that this isn't who they are. He can somehow break their souls free, just like how the player does in FNAF 3 in the game. He could end up telling them to work for him, and then they could all rebel against the prototype. Knowing the prototype relies on hardening parts of other toys, the player can navigate the facility to secure heavy machinery while Freddy and maybe even other animatronics corner the mastermind inside a dead end like a maintenance or level storage. And as we all know, Puppy Playtime, they just have a lot of explosive things in their games. Maybe this time they can end off me setting off a massive explosion, massive enough to where the prototype just absolutely gets destroyed, where he collapses and where he pretty much just dies. But after that, when they're done defeating the prototype, I think William Afton can come in and also be one of the prototype's partners. But this time, I think he can somehow kill Golden Freddy, pretty much what the prototype did with Huggy and Kissy by the end of the game. He ends up stabbing Golden Freddy and pretty much ends up killing him. But this time, I think it could become a chase where the player and Springtrap ends up, going into kind of a chase scene. I could see Springtrap trying to, just chase after the player with an axe. And, the player just comes up with a bunch of, he freezes him, he sets him on fire. We've all seen these in the game. I'm sure he can even build dumping a lot of stuff on Springtrap in order to completely destroy him. But I think this time he can end up crushing him just like how the player did with Dowie. I think he can end up leading him there to potentially just crush his whole entire body instead of just leaving his whole entire body there just like we did with Dowie. And I think that's how that kind of chase would go. And as for other animatronics like Chica, Bunny, and Freddy, I think the player can end up setting all their souls free by the end, just like how we do in the third game. And by that time, I think it's right for them to finally leave the factory and just to never return. Even potentially blowing up or maybe just setting the whole factory on fire, just like what happens in the third game. Now that's my kind of story. Now, maybe you guys could come up with different theories. If you guys think anything should change, comment down below. If you guys think anything else would have been better, I would like to hear your comments on what you would change or what you would like to add. Other than that, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications and like the video for another video like these. Other than that, thank you all for watching.